Hold your breath, because we're diving straight into the watery abyss to meet the legendary Kraken, a terror so massive it makes even the bravest sailors rethink their life choices. 2. Kraken, the terror of the deep. Let's rewind to the Viking Age, an era of longboats, bearded warriors, and some truly questionable seafood diets. These brave seafarers had plenty to fear: freezing waters, sudden storms, and, of course, the Kraken. Imagine it. You're paddling along, minding your business, when out of nowhere, the ocean's middle finger rises from the depths to ruin your day. The Kraken's origins trace back to medieval Scandinavian folklore, because nothing says bedtime story like a monster that can eat your entire ship. Norse texts like the Urvar Odr saga and Olaus Magnus's Historia de Gentibus Septentrionalibus describe the Kraken as an aquatic behemoth, so massive it could double as a real estate investment. Vikings swore this thing wasn't just big, it was mistake it for an island and try to picnic on it big. But here's where things get complicated. This legend wasn't just about terrifying sailors. It was also a coping mechanism for the unpredictable North Atlantic. Think about it. You're a Viking, staring into an endless abyss of salt water and dread. You need something to blame when the sea decides to ruin your voyage. And voila, the Kraken becomes the "it's not me, it's you" of maritime disasters. And let's not forget the Kraken's party trick: creating whirlpools. According to legend, when the Kraken dove, it churned the water so violently that it could drag ships straight to Davy Jones' locker. Realistically, it was probably just underwater currents, or, let's be honest, some very hungover sailors misinterpreting physics. But hey, why blame nature when you can blame a 100-foot squid monster? Now, here's where things get weird. By the 18th century, even scientists got in on the Kraken hype. Carl Linnaeus, the taxonomist who named literally everything, decided to classify the Kraken as a real species in his Systema Naturae. That's right, the man who gave us the scientific name for giraffes also thought giant shipwrecking calamari deserved a spot in the record books. Talk about a wild career choice. And while the Kraken started in Scandinavia, its reputation spread like gossip at a Viking feast. Sailors from all over Europe added their own embellishments, making the creature even scarier with every retelling. What started as a Nordic sea monster became a worldwide celebrity, proving that humans are great at one thing: turning fear into folklore. Now let's talk size, because with the Kraken, bigger is definitely scarier. According to early accounts, this thing wasn't just large, it was biblical. Descriptions painted a creature so enormous it could easily wrap its tentacles around a ship and drag it beneath the waves. Some sailors swore it was bigger than a whale. Others claimed it could be mistaken for an island. Yes, you heard that right, an island. Imagine anchoring your ship for a peaceful rest, only to discover the land beneath you is alive and hungry. And while ancient stories weren't exactly fact-checked, modern science gives us a possible inspiration: the giant squid. Growing up to 40 feet long, it's still no Kraken, but it's close enough to make you think twice about skinny dipping in the Atlantic. Pop culture, of course, takes it to the next level. Movies and games have given us Krakens so large they could swat an aircraft carrier like a fly. Is it realistic? Probably not. Is it terrifyingly cool? Absolutely. Because when it comes to sea monsters, bigger is always better. Let's face it, the Kraken's tentacles are the star of the show. These aren't just your average squid arms, they're weapons of mass destruction. Stories tell of tentacles slithering over the sides of ships, smashing masts, and dragging sailors into the abyss. And if that wasn't enough, it could apparently create whirlpools just by diving. A ship wasn't just dealing with one problem, it was facing a multi-tentacled apocalypse. But what's a Kraken without a bit of humor? Imagine one of these legendary beasts going up against a modern submarine. Would it go for the periscope first? Try to figure out the torpedoes? Or maybe it would just be confused and call it a day. Either way, one thing's for sure. The Kraken would have been an absolute nightmare for any ship with wooden planks and zero backup plans. And while we're laughing, let's not forget the raw terror those tentacles must have inspired in sailors. They weren't just battling waves and weather. They were battling a force of nature, one that didn't care if you were the captain or the cook. It was equal opportunity doom. Let's get real. Did sailors really spot the Kraken? Or were they just overreacting to an extra-large squid having a bad hair day? Spoiler alert, probably the latter. But hey, when you're out at sea for months low on rations and the rum is running dry, every ripple in the water starts to look like a monster auditioning for a horror movie. Turns out, real-life inspirations like the giant squid and colossal squid might be behind these terrifying tales. These deep-sea giants can grow up to 40 feet long, with eyes the size of dinner plates. Imagine seeing one of those tentacles slithering around your boat. You'd probably start yelling, "Kraken," too. And if you thought these squids were harmless, consider this. Their beaks are strong enough to slice through bone. Bone. Suddenly, their reputation as gentle giants doesn't sound so convincing. Early sailor sightings were often fueled by exaggeration, fear, and let's face it, a pinch of drama. For example, sightings of floating debris or breaching whales were often mistaken for monstrous tentacles. One sailor probably shouted, "It's the Kraken," while his crewmates were like, "Dude, that's driftwood." But who's going to argue with the guy holding the spyglass? And then there's the good old Scandinavian whirlpool myth. Back in the day, underwater currents and maelstroms were a mystery to sailors, so naturally they blamed the Kraken for nature's chaos. In reality, these whirlpools were caused by shifting tides and underwater geography, not an angry cephalopod plotting shipwrecks for fun. The line between myth and marine biology blurred over centuries, as tales of the Kraken merged with real-life encounters with the unknown. It's a perfect example of how human curiosity and a healthy dose of paranoia can turn science into a sea monster. Fast forward to today, and the Kraken has undergone the ultimate PR transformation, from a terrifying sea monster to a pop culture superstar. If you've ever yelled, "Release the Kraken," while watching Pirates of the Caribbean, or laughed at a Kraken meme, you've witnessed its glow-up firsthand. Movies like Clash of the Titans brought the Kraken to the big screen, complete with CGI tentacles and epic destruction. And let's not forget its appearances in video games like Assassin's Creed or Sea of Thieves, where battling the Kraken is practically a rite of passage. At this point, the Kraken has become less of a monster and more of a pop culture mascot. Who knew a giant squid could have a fan base? Over time, the Kraken evolved from terror-inducing to, dare I say, relatable. In some reimaginings, it's portrayed as a misunderstood creature just trying to protect its home from those pesky humans who keep trespassing. Can you really blame it for swatting away ships like flies? The poor thing probably just wanted some peace and quiet. In fact, even brands love the Kraken. From rum bottles to sports teams, it's become a go-to symbol for strength, mystery, and apparently great marketing. There's even a professional hockey team named the Seattle Kraken. Imagine explaining that to a Viking. Yes, your sea monster is now a logo for people who hit pucks on ice. Let's end with some quirky Kraken trivia, because who doesn't love a monster with a resume this impressive? Did you know the Kraken legend spread from Scandinavia to other maritime cultures, inspiring tales of sea monsters around the globe? It's like the Kraken was the original influencer, except instead of hashtags, it had tentacles. The Kraken's role as a mythological OG didn't stop at folklore. Its stories inspired everything from literature to art, with depictions ranging from terrifying to downright charming. And if you've ever seen a Kraken tattoo, you'll know it's a favorite among people who love both maritime lore and saying, "Yes, I sat through 8 hours of needlework for this." Even today, the Kraken has a special place in pop culture, and let's not forget the memes. Whether it's "Release the Kraken" or a funny take on its misunderstood nature, this sea monster has managed to stay relevant for centuries. Not bad for a creature that started out as a sailor's worst nightmare. From its Nordic roots to its modern-day stardom, the Kraken proves one thing: you don't need to be real to make waves.